Full disclosure, this is a venting video about a specific situation from Facebook. If you do not think you're going to be able to handle this, I would recommend stopping the video now. So I'm going to try to use as many phrases from the conversation as I possibly can, because it was remarkably infuriating, and Cass can even back me up because I was explaining everything to him as it was going on. So there was a post on Facebook from a person by the name of John Wilkie. And yes, I'm going to actually use the name this time so that you guys know if you want to try to avoid or go visit him, but depending on your temperament. But this person posted a picture from a comic book page of Superman. It was supposed to be an anti-Nazism American viewpoint post. Okay, got it. I noticed that. I'm apolitical. I don't really like politics. What do you expect me to do when I see something like that? I read it, and then I noticed something scientifically/physically impossible. Superman was standing on top of a platform that stood above everybody else, and his cape was flapping in the wind. But there's people in the crowd whose hats had not flown off. So I commented a question: why is Superman's cape blowing in the wind when it's obvious that there's no wind? As I was about to hit the button for post, send, comment, whatever you want to call that little kind of arrow mail button, I noticed another thing that was interesting, and that's that Superman's boots looked like they were made out of socks instead of boots. So I started getting annoyed that I hadn't noticed that before I hit the send button. So then I looked in the comments and found somebody else who had noticed the same thing and commented on that person saying something like, "I'm so glad that somebody else noticed this. I was annoyed that I had not noticed it until I hit the send button and therefore couldn't post it." John Wilkie's response was to go onto my comment and blast both of us, and I'm going to censor this particular video because I want this to actually be able to be seen by the public. He said, "What the is wrong with you?" Which I could only assume is talking about both of us because we both noticed the same thing, but he chose to comment it on mine. So he and I started having this big back and forth because I was trying to point out to him that if you're on a public platform, you cannot dictate to people what they're going to see. You guys are probably familiar with this concept by now. I am a very big believer in if you're on a public platform, you can't dictate how people are going to respond to what you post. If you think it's supposed to be funny, be prepared for some people not to realize it's supposed to be funny. If you post something political, be prepared for some people, not every one of them, but every once in a while somebody's going to come across there, like me, who does not care about politics and post something that's not political. If you can't handle that, quit posting on a public format, or make it obvious in the post, like Facebook has a captions option up at the top. Make it obvious that this is supposed to be a political post. This is supposed to be funny. This is supposed to be serious, whatever. So that people read it and go, okay, and they know what they're doing. So the long story short is that because I called him out on basically dictating to people the way that they're supposed to respond to his post, he started blasting me. And in his case, he actually started calling me incredibly offensive names. I'm not going to say what one of them was. I will put a censored word across the screen. That's one of the things he called me. One I can say, he apparently decided to go check my profile page, feed page, profile page, whatever you want to call it. He went and checked my Facebook page and decided to explain to me that I've checked your page and everything on it is you posting about problems that you have with problems on Facebook, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not joking. He literally said, blah, 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 blah. saying he doesn't care about anyone's opinion but his. Remarkably juvenile. So I kept basically repeating the same thing, that if you're going to be on a public platform, you can't dictate to people. So he basically told me that it's not your responsibility to tell me if I should close down my page or dictate to people, blah, 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 blah. No, it's not my responsibility to tell you that. It's not my place to tell you that. But guess what? When you're acting like you're a Facebook Nazi, pun intended, by the way, considering the entire thing started out with Nazism, when you're acting like this is what it's supposed to be about, why are you guys deviating from that? And you're going to start insulting people because of it. By the way, another word that he called me was this, which again, I've censored. He then called me unibrow or omnibrow or something of that sort. I think it was unibrow because obviously I've got a unibrow. So now he's again insulting me. Then his response was to basically say that you can go off. One of his lines was to literally say you can go off whichever direction you like. So, that being said, a recommendation to anybody who watches my YouTube channel, who is also on Facebook, which is probably most of you, but a recommendation to you. If you come across John Wilkie on Facebook, I would not recommend interacting with him because he is incredibly juvenile, disrespectful, and arrogant. And I'm trying my best to be nice about this, but I can't think of a single way not to be mean because there's nothing he did. His post in of itself was basically intended to be obnoxious because it was political propaganda. Then every response of his was offensive in some way, shape, or form. So if you guys come across his page, I would not recommend following it. I would not recommend delving into it. Because what's the point of harboring people who can't act like decent human beings?